would love to hear, because I know you read articles and I know you post them.
Yeah.
I'd love, to be honest, I was talking to Dave. I was like, I just want to let Oleg talk tonight and like spiel like just all his thoughts, his real estate. I mean, whatever you can share about like the difficulties of planning or what you're doing to kind of back yourself up, you know, because you might start planning and then things take a turn and everybody's kind of in that. And then like in a good way, Oleg, I'm like jealous because like I wish sometimes I think like I'll watch your stories. I'm like, dude, I wish like I understood like how to jump in this multi-unit, what you're doing. But I'm like, okay, Ruslan, chill the flip out, dude. You're 30. You'll get there. Just learn from the sidelines for now. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not as difficult as it looks.
Yeah. Well,
and the other thing is that if I were to redo it,
yeah,
the one thing that I would do differently, and this is where like my Slavic nature kicks in,
yeah,
is I wanted like studying this, going back to our last podcast, I started studying commercial real estate like literally over 10 years ago. And I had that mentality of like, I'm going to do this by myself and I get the whole piece of the pie. To tell you the truth, I would be so much further ahead if I did not do that. Like if I just partnered and did the first couple deals with someone, I would be way further ahead because there's no, you can learn all you want out of a book, but that's just info. Experience is what you want to kind of start going off on your own.
That's actually a valid. I like what you said. I was just listening to Deeper Pockets yesterday, and they were mentioning about the fact that like everybody hears so much horror stories from partnerships, and people don't want to partner up, but it's most of the time because we just don't know how to vet the partner.
Yeah,
you know, we get sold a partner, not we don't actually like trying to build a relationship.
Dude, partnership is like marriage. You got to date them before you commit,
and you got to keep dating once you commit, not just let it go.
Exactly. Because a lot of people are like, okay, let's go do business, but you can't, or they'll go into business and they're looking for someone who they're going to agree with. That's not what you want. You want someone that complements your weaknesses, not someone who is the same person that you are. Because you got to bring value.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. And so what in that discussion that I was listening to is exactly what you said. And if we could talk, if you can share a little bit about that. I'm sure you've been in multiple partnerships that you've learned from what to do and what not to do. And the main thing about a partnership is, like you said, is to find somebody. You don't look for like our Slavic mentality is like, oh, how can I use this guy in my advantage? But it should be like, what can this guy do that I can't do?
Yeah.
And I'm going to do what I can do to the fullest of my ability, and he's going to do what he can do. And that way, that's going to be a successful partnership.
Yes. You both bring value. And when you both bring value, in that case, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. There's like a multiple when both people bring value. So, to what you said, absolutely true. Like, if you're going into, I think the scarcity mindset of many people, that scarcity mindset of like, okay, well, I'm going to partner up with this guy for a year to get ahead, then I'm going to go off on my own or whatever. That is already like the foundation, the scarcity mindset of the person. Like that's what their foundation of the way that they think is built. And so, I know like I've had partnerships as well. I had one partnership that went, I want to say like 6 years. It was good. And then we just both wanted to do the same thing, but separately. Because I think we just we saw different ways to grow the company.
Let me interrupt you real quick. You know what I think sometimes gets in the way of a great partnership is the fact that you think that, like, because typically you partner on a job. You're not partnering like, hey, we're gonna work together for 10 years, right? You're like, hey, let's do this project together, and maybe this is me, maybe I don't know, but like if say for example somebody else comes with another project to you and says, hey, will you partner up with me? Like, I feel like you have that opportunity to do it with somebody else as well without this guy getting butthurt. Or is that like, I think in this industry,
there's
like
JV
that's kind of how you work things out. Like, it's not about like, yeah, loyalty. You're still friends, or I guess you're still partners. You're still doing things together. But just because, for example, maybe another deal comes up that you want to be a part of, it doesn't mean that you're gonna get butthurt about something. And this is just from being a little bit experienced so far in the residential Sacramento market among Slavs, and the things that I hear. Everybody takes things so personally, or many.
I mean, like, if I have a partnership, that's a deal by deal. Like I have, like, right now I'm doing a JV deal with my brother.
Okay.
Joint venture, JV. So like I bought another deal and I just gave him an opportunity to join that first. So that's kind of how I do things. I don't know why people would, I don't know if they get jealous or they get kind of awkward in those situations. Like right now, I partner on a case by case, like one by one deal, JV. But right now, I'm also exploring bringing on like an actual partner, like a lifetime partner, to build this private equity company that will focus on commercial.
Okay.
So, but those are still, those are two kind of
like we spoke about Cushman and Wakefield, like something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I just learned about another one because I was just researching like just office, just lease space for rent in downtown Sacramento. So I came across some of them. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like you build a building. And I actually had no idea. Like 555 on Capitol. You lease a building. You have a gym in there, a kitchen, parking, and you lease like office space. So would you be like interested in like mixed use or office space or residential? Like what is your
asset class? Yeah. So well, that's a whole nother podcast probably. But I think my vision from the last podcast has not really changed.
Okay.
I think multi is still a very strong asset class. I think it's going to continue to be strong, but we're going to see what's going to happen because rates are going up. And if rates go up, that eats away at, net profit, which means it should begin to push cap rates up. And when cap rates go up, values go down.
Please, like for somebody listening that doesn't cap rates, what's cap rates?
A cap rate is capitalization rate. So that's the rate at which your money you make a return if you were to pay all cash on a deal. So like 6 cap based on like a $1 million purchase price means that the property makes 6% of $1 million annually,
because
after all expenses, meaning after property taxes, utilities, all the bills.
A lot of young investors right now are like short-term investors. They want to put in $100,000 and they want their money back with all their profit, like within the next 6 months. But like it does not work like that, especially with the rates going up.
Yeah, exactly. So and like multi, there's still a massive shortage of property. There's just the demand. Like I think I read something recently that said that we were short a total of like in the US, like 4 million units.
Mm.
Not necessarily only because the population is growing, or people are moving, but like older properties, like Memphis area,
Mm-hmm.
especially. Like if you get on online, LoopNet or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see a whole bunch of property that is just it's vacant because it's just
Can't
run
live in it
down. Like it's not worth to even remodel it.
because it's so
Um,
expensive at the or what's going
it's
on.
just run down. Like it's lost its economic. Like it's just lost its
Like
life
yeah.
expectancy. And so there's just so much more growth, and like until Amazon, is able to put people into little cubicles to sleep,
Yeah.
then there's multi's always going to do good. And then you see people like Grant Cardone and others, and like BlackRock,
Yeah.
who just continue to buy tons and tons of property. That should tell you something. Companies like BlackRock, who have the smartest minds in the world
Mm-hmm.
working for them.
Obviously, they took all the smart minds from Zillow. What's what's your
Zillow
opinion?
well, they're smarter than Zillow smart minds for
Yeah.
sure.
What happened there? Like where did Zillow stretch themselves thin?
Yeah, Zillow. From my understanding, I think I know half the story.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like they were going to just without actually putting like a personal touch behind their acquisition strategy, just based on data and trends. And
Mm.
so
So they got kind of if I guess if simply put, they got very emotional about their buys and sells, like not real tangible stuff. Just
yeah, so they Zillow probably has out of residential data aggregators, I think they have the most info.
mm-hmm.
And I think they just probably relied on that a little bit too much. I know there was instances where they overpaid for houses because they thought like that's how much more it would grow. I know personal agents
Mm-hmm.
who were on these transactions where they sold homes for 15 grand over ask, 20 grand over ask, like over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And these properties did not just appreciate
That much.
that much. And so
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah,
They shorted themselves.
they shorted themselves, man. It's just a loss carry forward tax write off
Yeah,
for
I
them.
literally. Another interesting, and I don't know if you know a lot about this, but WeWorks. I know we
Yeah.
mentioned about that. Do you know? Because when I worked in the union as a carpenter, we refurbished a ton of floors for WeWorks.
Mm-hmm.
Their headquarters in San Francisco is insane. The amount of money they put into them.
Yeah.
And they're flopping. Can you break that down a little bit? Like that business model and why maybe it's not as successful as they thought it would be?
Well, it's not as successful as they thought it would be. And this is not to do like a punchline,
Yeah.
but I think at one point they are
Mhm.
valued at like 70 billion or 80 or 90 billion dollars
As a company?
as a company. And
Mhm.
someone did the math and they realized that them as a company leasing the space, they are worth more than the actual real estate that they were renting from. Like think about that. So you don't own that real estate,
Yeah.
you're leasing it, but you're valued more than that real estate that you're leasing from, but you don't own it.
Yeah. So it's like an NFT.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
somewhere in the cloud or something.
But again, but the value is not only in the real estate, like they have a
Right.
culture and a brand
The
and
idea.
the idea, and their offices are super cool, and they were out to change the world,
Yeah.
or the as I say, elevate the collective mind of the world, or whatever it was.
Was that really their like one of their?
Yeah, they have like this mantra where they want to elevate the collective mind, I think,
Okay.
of the world, whatever that means. I mean,
They're all
you're just
modern and
yeah.
hip offices. And
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
So I know that they had like a scandal, and then they're just the value of their company it just crashed. and then they just lost steam.
Hmm.
And they did an IPO when they were supposed to, and it just continued to tumble, and then they had to kick the CEO out. And I know they were losing like over $2 million a day at one point.
That's crazy. How did I mean a lot of office spaces when you lease, it's not allowed to sublease. Like, would they need to get like rezoned or let's work out special deals with?
Yeah, they're not actually subleasing it though.
They're not.
No, it's not. That wouldn't be considered a sublease.
How does that work?
Because I want to say, because I've leased an executive office before.
Mm-hmm.
You do sign an agreement that you're gonna use the space and stuff, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like a true lease. So I don't, and it might be so that in some areas they were, I'm sure it's actually more of like a regulation depending on what state you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in some states that is considered a sublease, but
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly, the details of how they did it.
Okay. So, some guys are building homes or remodeling homes while they have their 40-hour a week job.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of guys like yourself, this is your full-time thing, is what you do. You're more focused on commercial properties now. With what we've been hearing is, I guess it's not slowing down yet, but it's kind of like peaking. All this type of stuff. I mean, you still have to make money, so still have to keep
Yeah.
building. You can't just jump off and go to work. So how are you feeling about this? What are you doing to kind of set yourself up? Are you just kind of just playing the long game? What's your strategy?
Yeah. So what you said is true. People right now are looking for that next deal. They're probably making choices that are riskier nowadays
Mm-hmm.
because they have to deploy that capital and um, beat the clock, if you will.
Yeah.
Build and sell before that
ASAP. Yeah.
anticipated crash. Which I don't know if there's going to be one, but what I'm doing is I've already got stuff in the pipeline
Mm-hmm.
for the next probably 12 to 15 months,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also looking for cash flowing deals, so that alleviates pressure
Mm-hmm.
from having to make a choice, like you know buying a piece of land that I need to build on and sell before
So you're
a
not stuck
certain
with something.
time. So, like the property that I'm focusing is already cash flowing or
Mm-hmm.
partially cash flowing.
Okay.
So, and then while people are paying the rent, we're remodeling, we're fixing them up, we're adding value. So it's covering the debt, it's covering the cash flow. There's already a decent return when we're going into it.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not all. So you kind of diversifying in the types of real estate you're going into.
Correct.
Okay. And what about your builds? Are you having? I was gonna say, are you having to come up with change orders? The changes are coming to you. Is that
Change order is not in my vocabulary.
is it really? I mean, your builders are they
So
coming?
most the subs that I work with,
Yeah.
I've worked with them for years.
Yeah.
They just know, like, if they want to continue to do business, it's give and take. Like an example, we ended up replacing, like, we had we're this quadplex that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
There was bathtubs in the master,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized there was no shower, so I swapped out the shower for the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
Like, normally, probably a company would say, well, that's going to be a change order. But since our agreement was that he would provide the bathtubs, so he's not providing the bathtubs anymore. So that's
are.
$500-600 savings.
Mm-hmm.
Now he just needs to convert the plumbing to a shower. It's kind of a trade off.
Okay.
I try to make it work. Like, I rarely deal with change orders. Yeah, I think that's more of like a commercial. It's definitely more of like a profit center in the commercial space. But I try to talk about all the details ahead of time, so that
all your, what do they call them? Not upfront. Anyways, I'm having a bad day with words today apparently. Um, but the more you move into commercial and probably focusing on larger projects, um, like it was super cool to see um my wife's relatives up in the Washington area just finishing up on 130 units. And like in my mind, like where do you even start with something so huge? Like I can put like a fourplex together in my mind, you know, a six or a eight. And then but once you get into that, you're hiring a whole design team. Have you had to upgrade your design teams and like go to different
Yeah,
architects? Can you
absolutely.
speak a little bit through that process? Like just of course the money is different when you're going from residential to commercial residential mixed, but then everybody that you use in the process, like what is that?
Okay, so like in residential, you can let's talk about planning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you buy land, you want to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a draftsman,
Mm-hmm.
meaning an unlicensed, like they don't even have to be licensed, like an licensed architect. You can go to a draftsman and they can draw plans for you. Hire a engineer, a
Mm-hmm.
structural engineer. They can pretty much get you to they not pretty much they can get you to approval,
Mm-hmm.
plan approval. Where in the commercial side of things, you can't just go and hire a draftsman to draw plans for a 30 or 40 unit. Like you have to have um a licensed architect behind that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the threshold is like 8 or 9 units or more. Don't
Okay.
quote me on that.
Okay.
So like for my properties now, for my multi, um, I'm using a well-known architect here in town
Mm-hmm.
who's designed. That's all he does is like actually the one he did for me is probably one of his smallest ones.
Okay.
And he's like his whole wall is covered in 9, 12, 15 story buildings that he's done around here.
Okay.
Totally different game. Like way more professional. I'm CC'd on every email.
Mm-hmm.
I get updates without asking.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Weekly.
like day, yeah. I mean, it's just a different level, and of course, it's the pay is
Yeah.
it costs a lot more money. There's a lot more detail. There's a lot more regulation around commercial plans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even like what blew my mind with the first project that I did that was commercial, like my Broadway, my 21 unit Broadway. They had they call out detail for how much pounds and pressure it takes to open and close the door. That's pretty wild. Like if you think about
Yeah.
it, where
That
in the commercial space, and why did they do that? Is because like if there's a fire, like
see.
there's all sorts of people that may or may not be able to open. So like they regulate all that. Like you
Yeah.
have to,
In my mind, like that's such a normal thing for me
yeah,
because like when we're building all these multi units like in the Bay in Oakland, like you're backing each wall has a rating like a
yeah,
lift, a pull, a push. Like you have your ADA 18 inches, 12 inches for your pull and push for your
yeah.
doors, your 4-inch legs. You want to make sure you get your full 90, blah blah blah. So like when that's why it was like so hard for me to get into the residential of how simple everything is
Hmm.
and unregulated and they do whatever they want. And I'm just like, this is so not normal to me.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
because it's not for commercial. Like they don't like in residential, a 2 unit, they're not expecting 100 people to go
Go
through
through
those
it.
doors.
True.
Um,
True.
and the other thing is not only that, it's probably half of it's probably for liability reasons. Like if someone were to design something that was flawed, like how quick would an attorney, like a slip and fall or an ADA attorney,
Yeah.
there's people that make
Living.
living out of that,
Yeah.
suing and settling on like ADA issues. So that was something that I learned that kind of blew my mind in the commercial space, and it's totally normal. Like,
All that
yeah.
pre-planning stuff. What else that's actually interesting. It's a great topic. What else did you like kind of blew your mind or you learned in your pre-planning phase compared to when you were building smaller units?
So we had to go through and get a study done on like air moisture, like the probability of um, you know, like air circulation, possibility of mold, moisture in the air, mold growth, or spore. Like that's not non-existent again in residential. Grease traps, I guess that's kind of a given. Yeah.
Anything. So air moisture. So for me, so like in my world, it's normal when we top out. Like the walls are framed and we're topping out just your drywall from the ceiling to like 4 foot down. All of that is always waterproof or water resistant type stuff.
Yeah, we only do that in the shower pans on residential.
Okay.
So it's yeah. So I want to say it's like 3 or 4 feet of moisture resistant, and it's
and then like by the sink or something.
Not even by the sink. No.
That's yeah. See, that's crazy. Okay. All right. But you're still doing all wood. Yep. Even though it's multiple four stories or however many stories, you're doing all wood. Is there any steel incorporated or like beefing things up?
Oh yeah. Like so our 21 unit has quite a bit of structural steel. Quite a bit. It's I want to say of the frame, there's about 40% the structural steel in it.
Okay.
And there's a whole ton of lumber too.
So change orders is not a thing in your building, or you try to stay away from those?
Yeah, change orders can be avoided if you talk about everything ahead of time. Like if you don't talk about things, then all of a sudden it's a change order. But the construction is just one of those things where a lot of things do deviate, So
things change.
Yeah. Period. And sometimes it's not the fault of either side.
Yeah.
But I would say that like a fair change order would be something where the contractor would be spending a good amount of money for like equipment that was not accounted for before. Or something that was just like a big ticket item,
like an actual change or an ad. Not I agree with you. If it's like if you're nitpicking, nickel and diming for like $1,000 here or like $500, it's like, yeah, I get it. 3 change orders, $500 add up to $1,500.
Yeah,
but that's $1,500.
That's right.
So I definitely understand there. R5 process going between because now like with a 21 unit, your planning phase is probably, I'm guessing, taking much longer.
So we're approved now. We got fully approved about a month ago. And so
sorry, approved means your drawings are stamped.
Our building plans are approved. So right now they're working on the paperwork and producing invoices to pay for the permit. So we're ready to break ground here in a couple weeks.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Okay. I have a small Chick-fil-A breaking ground. Actually broke ground last week. And it's my smallest project that I've ever done, but probably the most nervous for some reason I've ever been.
Well, it's Chick-fil-A.
One number that my first question was like, do I get sandwiches after this project? The answer was no. But the other reason why is because all the exterior panels are prefab, so we're supposed to build the structure of the Chick-fil-A in 5 days.
Wow!
With all the exterior panels being finished, like they got their frame, their sheathing, waterproofing, and finishes on. So we just pretty much install the panels, trusses, sheathe the trusses, and they get caulked on the outside, and the structure is complete.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm afraid of, because making sure the panels come in on time.
Yeah.
What is your planning phase like for your exterior, your interior? Your drawings are approved. You still have to go. Do you just hire a GC? Do you like to manage everything yourself and hire to subcontractors directly? How does that work for you?
Yeah. So personally, I'm not handling any of the exterior stuff, sort of the structure. I'm more right now, like I'm focusing on making sure that when it comes to finishes,
Mm-hmm.
our project is ready for that. Like cabinets right now are delayed on one project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for 2 months just to get an order in. And it's because things are changing. Like we were going to put an order in and we actually put it in. And then they called me back and said, well, it's actually it's not an 8 to 10 week wait. It's a 24 to 36 week wait.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about more than a half year.
That's
So I
crazy.
canceled that order.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm focusing on like on things like that
Lead times.
that can potentially delay my project and have it sit there when it shouldn't be. That's
Mm-hmm. So is that making
appliances,
okay?
things that I have to order in quantity.
Is that making you change certain things? Is that making you reduce the quality or upgrade the quality of things that are just more readily available? How does that affecting you?
Yeah. So in the example that I gave you,
Mm-hmm.
I had to upgrade the quality. So we're gonna spend about 35% more on cabinets.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot because we were gonna spend 20 grand, and the bill is coming in at like 27,000.
Yeah.
But this particular supplier has a 4 to 6 week turnaround.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could wait 10, 12 weeks, but if you have a construction loan, your interest doesn't stop. And if
Yeah.
there's any delays,
What's cheaper then?
yeah, I mean, it's so right now, I think in the development game, you're racing against interest
Mm-hmm.
and like yeah, just interest and cost, and not only your interest, but during that time that you're waiting, other costs that are potentially going up.
Yeah.
So
Material.
material,
So I mean, okay. So material escalates. You're in contract with your subcontractor. Material escalates 15-20%. Are you covering that? As your subcontractor covering that? Like how?
yeah, had that happen as well
Mm-hmm.
on AC equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked out a deal where I covered 70%, he covered 30. So that was the fair thing to do because in that particular case, we actually discussed ordering it ahead of time and
Okay.
never did.
Well, that's
And at
very
the same
gracious of
time,
you taking 70.
when we did do that, like there was delays. And so, so you just, this whole business is a relationship business.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to do business with like an iron fist, if you will, and
You'll only last so
you won't
far.
last long, and no one's going to want to work with you. So that's kind of, give and take.
See, with like since COVID started and all these delays happened and your materials going up, orders don't go in, like schedules have become so much more important on projects
Mm-hmm.
because like you just mentioned, when did you order the material? When were you released for the material?
Yeah.
Why did it take you 3 weeks after you were released to order the material? And so on and so forth. And this all impacts the job. And at the end of the day, like almost all contractors and builders have to be willing to lose a little bit and go through this together rather than, like you said, burn bridges and be like, oh, I'm still making my 15% or I'm still making my 25% on this project no matter what, and then not have a job when things come to
Yeah. So like if a contractor is going to nickel and dime, or if they are like taking the position that everything is on me, then they're not valuing the relationship, and then they're not valuing the future relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not someone I'm going to work with anyway. Because I just don't. That's not. Success is a team effort. It's not a zero sum game.
Mm-hmm.
If he only wins and I don't, then there's not going to be a second deal for him.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
For sure. Unless it's like a clear cut picture that
Yeah,
like there's one party at fault. When we pretty clearly it's never that way. You
sure.
know.
Like I started a project, and man, the foundation took way longer than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I started ordering lumber was super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I'm not gonna get he's not gonna eat the cost for that. That's totally on me. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair thing, right? Even if our agreement is that my frame is gonna cost X amount, like
Mm-hmm.
a predetermined X amount, labor and material.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be fair about it. I'm not gonna expect someone to eat the cost. That's
Because
basically,
you never could have
not only
planned
that,
for
you're not
that.
going to motivate anyone to show up or to
Yeah.
even finish the job. You know,
Yeah.
why would someone prioritize my job that they're not making any money on over another one in this or this housing climate where jobs are
Well, look.
everywhere?
So some GCs, and maybe this is just on bigger projects, but some GCs love pushing that. Like, I'm giving you the notice to proceed. You better get going, and we'll figure it out later down the road. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it. Um, I hate working with those types of GCs, and it's always nicer. I mean, it's always nicer, like you said, when you can have a relationship, like when there's integrity involved, I guess, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Um, when there's no integrity and people are intentionally trying to screw others over, it like motivate, like you said, it doesn't motivate. You don't even want to see the person,
Yeah.
and then everyone's project just goes to crap.
Yep.
Do you have an issue with some subcontractors and integrity? Does it depend which contractors you got? Is it your rough more? Or is it your finish more?
It's so on one project I did have issues with my framers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um just not they just weren't very like good guys. Like they just didn't value their relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
so they kind of did what they were going to do. That's that.
Did they know what they were doing, at least, like framing
They
wise?
they knew what they were doing. Yeah. I just like I'm a person personally, I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone who I think if you were to ask my friends, I'm pretty reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't go missing, or like people can't get a hold of me for days at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so and I'm you can apply that towards like a lot of things that I do. And so
Mm-hmm.
I guess I expect that from others.
Mm-hmm.
Um so so you know, I like framers that show up on time. They're there every day until the job is done.
Yeah.
They're not you know, working on my house for 3 days and they disappear Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday because they got to
Working on
go
somebody else's
yeah,
house.
they got to get the walls up somewhere else. But that's kind of so yeah, that's my latest sort of experience.
Okay, so is this this is with all due respect, is this like a case of you get what you pay for type of thing, or is this a case of like just somebody just blowing you off?
Actually, the price that I was paying was not a discounted price. I would say it was a market price.
So it's not like they gave you like some deal and then they're like, dude, I
No,
gave you a deal. Why
yeah,
you?
no.
Wow.
So it's market rate. What is market rate? Like on a 3-story at that time, I don't know what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
This was last summer, so we're talking about like $13
Square foot.
a foot. Yeah. So I mean that's you know, and I buy the scaffolding.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good for residential.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. Um, can they make something more in the
Mm-hmm.
Bay? Or sure,
Yeah.
of course.
Is this the Bay?
It's
No.
not the Bay, and they're not driving 2 hours, three
Yeah,
hours.
100%.
So, but yeah, I like reliability. Like I'm very. I know that the commercial game is definitely a step up. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's liquidated damages in contract. That's what I'm doing. I'm starting to do now
Mm-hmm.
on my last several last residentials that I'm gonna be finishing. Like there, I will have a section for liquidated damages. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you delay the project, if you're late, like you're gonna be deducted.
There's just too much at risk.
There's just too much at risk. And not only that, but if I'm doing my part, you got to do your part.
How has vetting your subcontractors changed going from like smaller builds to bigger builds?
Okay, so I'm not managing any of my bigger builds.
Mm-hmm.
So my ground up, my 21 unit ground up.
Okay.
I'm hiring a GC to do that ground up turnkey. That's it. He can do it faster, better. He's got all the subs that can handle that kind of job. Renovations, I'm self-managing.
Okay.
If it's not something that is crazy big where we're tearing down.
Is there a money value that you're looking at where you decide not to manage, or just a scope?
Yeah, it's more probably the scope or the undertaking of the overall job. I would say that like a ground up, there's just so much code that you need to know how things are done. And if you don't know that, you don't know what to look for to know that your subs are doing it right.
Right.
So like on a renovation, like if I were to buy a retail center, 10,000 square foot retail center, and I'm just replacing what's bad with new roof or whatever, that's a lot easier to manage than
remove and put it back.
Exactly.
Okay.
So not much vetting.
So kind of GC takes care of that, and you trust them to do that. That makes sense. Do you hire like an owner rep, or when the GC has owner meetings, you're the one there?
Yeah, I'm the one there.
You're the one there. Okay. That's
not at the owner rep level yet.
Well, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day.
Maybe.
Not maybe, for sure. I mean, at the pace, I think at the pace you're moving,
I still am the type of person that I want to know what's going on.
Like you want to be
not even control reasons, but I want to learn. Like,
this is a whole different world.
Yeah, I want to learn. I want to understand. Even for the purpose of like, that'll help my underwriting when I'm looking at future deals. To know that this kind of roof costs X amount versus a similar roof, costs X amount. Like that'll help me to look at deals a certain way.
Just knowing of the potential risk will help you lock in different deals. Okay, that makes sense. So then in that case, you probably wouldn't want to own a rep for a long time until you feel very comfortable with exactly what's going on.
Probably.
That's pretty cool. It's like it's an expensive way to get yourself through school, but it's a better way because there's a profit margin at the end potentially there. So are you building these multi-units to hold and lease? Are you building for resale value? Is it different builds, different goals?
So mainly it's to build and hold for to maximize the sort of the financial model that I have. And usually that's like a 3 to 7 year hold.
Okay.
Are some longer? Yeah. Like if you I would personally hold my Broadway property for longer than that because of where we are in Sacramento. I feel like Sacramento is going to continue to grow. And it's in a spot that's kind of where development is going out that way. It's, the rail yards are being developed, in and around sort of the downtown area. And there's been a handful of projects that were approved in that Oak Park area. So that area is going to be like that area is going to be growing as well.
We actually just landed on Broadway and 49th. I don't know if you drive by there.
Okay, that's a little bit further past me.
Okay, so I don't know if you've been by there. There's a building enclosed in like shrink wrap. So that's a building that we're doing, and it's a hot like a clinic type of thing. But what I've learned on there was the shrink wrap, because a lot of people will walk by. They're like, "What is there like nuclear waste? Like, is this not safe to breathe around this project? Why are you guys wrapping in shrink wrap?" But the shrink wrap ended up costing less than they estimated would potentially in water damage during construction. Okay. And so this last rain that we had Monday morning would have like like based on previous projects where we had water damage in the bay, it's like you can't even start to fathom like the damages, the suits, the lawsuits, the documentation needed, the finger pointing, it's insane. But that's something that I learned on this project where it's like, dude, sell the GC on a shrink wrap, like be willing, say, hey, we'll help out, we'll pitch in, blah blah blah, and it just changes the direction of the
Nice.
project.
I just learned something.
So yeah, so like stuff like that is like I appreciate the fact that I could be the little man on these big huge projects because I take notes all the time, for myself. And then we landed another project in Aggie Square. Obviously, we're trying to focus more on like public projects, medical centers, things that are funded prior to starting. They already have all the funds, and in this market, this is I guess it's a plan to, if things go down or there's a stalemate, these projects can still continue to completion. Is residential for you kind of gonna go through the ups and downs? Are people still going to pay rent? We're building in California, right? What if we pass a random law where there's rent caps? There's
already rent control. So California passed rent control last year, except for they exempted buildings that were 15 years and younger. So
okay,
so if you build new,
yeah,
you're not limited to the rent caps that they put in place. So in a way that, people who have lived in a property in an apartment complex, if there's people like this who live there for like 10 years, they're not going to receive payment shock when their rent goes up. Where like a new building, I need to recapture, like so I'm going to build this property. The only thing that makes sense to do this building is for me to do rent increases and follow the market. So my rents have to be market rents. And at the end of that 5 or 7 years of whatever I'm going to decide to keep it, that's when the big payout is going to happen. If I don't do those rent bumps, it's not worth to do this project or any project, a new construction, because of the cost to build. The cost to build is extremely expensive. And you can't recoup your money right away. So those rent increases,
it takes that amount long. That's kind of going back to your cap rate, right?
Correct.
Like the amount of time. Well, and this might be a dumb question, but say you don't raise your rent for the 5 years, and then you put your property up for sale, and you got like 1,000 buyers who's like, oh my gosh, this guy hasn't raised rent. It's worth this much money, blah blah blah. But then you don't know that it's actually going to be worth that much money, or like, what's the gamble there?
So there's properties like that selling all the time. They're under market rents.
But what's the but?
But because the market is so crazy, they're actually getting that money.
Okay.
So if things were to slow down, they may not.
Okay.
Like things would normalize. So right now it's not a normal
more risk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I were to never raise rents, I would still get above what the property is worth based on the current rent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if there's $100,000 of net operating income, let's say the property's worth $5 million, and if I were to raise rents and now it's producing $150,000, it's worth, I don't know, let's say 8, right? So I would probably land somewhere between those two numbers if I did not raise rents, because I would leave money, I would leave meat on the bone for the next investor. He would see that, and that would become an attractive property. It'd probably be, bid up.
Right. That makes sense. I think it was in Sacramento where the most expensive per unit property just sold. I think it was like $750 a unit or
crazy.
something. What the heck is going on? Why I don't know a lot about the property that sold and why it's even valued that high. Maybe you can share some light on that.
Yeah. So it's a new construction.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice. It's got tons of amenities, um, pools, gyms, saunas,
Mm-hmm.
designed beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like a work area, workspace.
Mm-hmm.
Um, someone sees the value in paying that, and obviously the rents are um, justifying the price or the future rents.
So there, you think this was more like of a somebody actually betting on the future or somebody trying to park some money somewhere?
No, I don't think it's just parking money. I think that I think that the buyer sees future potential growth.
In Sacramento.
Yeah.
We had a realtor on, Sam Golove. He mentioned Sacramento used to be um, a secondary market,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's more of a primary market with the way Sacramento is expanding and growing. And um, what's your opinion on that? Like downtown Sacramento growing, or is like all of Sacramento area up to, I guess, Colfax, Grass Valley? There's multi units all along the highway now.
Yeah. Um, I would at least in like the like if you were to call 10 different agents
Yeah,
across the US, they would not they would like they would not consider this
primary market.
a primary market yet.
What needs to
It's
happen
probably getting there.
what needs to happen for Sacramento to cross that threshold?
It's interesting because it's grown so much. It continues to grow. It's actually become a pretty expensive city,
Mm-hmm.
but yet like it's not making it on the map. And I don't know.
In which regards?
And well, like it's just still Sacramento. Like, okay, we got the stadium, that's great.
Yeah. It's not
Um,
LA or
yeah, it's just
okay.
kind of overlooked, man. And we are, as far as nationally speaking, I feel like it is an overlooked city market.
Okay.
Like when you think of California, you think of LA, San Francisco, San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
Orange County.
Right.
Sac is nowhere near like the top of those,
That's kind of crazy.
except for being a capital. But
If it wasn't the capital, then it wouldn't.
I don't think it'd be on the radar.
So, I mean, I bet you will be looking at this 10 years ago.
Again, that's from a national perspective.
Yeah. But that kind of motivates me to stay in this area, to keep investing in this area, because at one point, um
It's
it's just a sleeper town.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think you will definitely get your money's worth by coming here. I guess, and we talked a little bit before this, there's potential on the East Coast with all their cheap building permits and
Mm-hmm.
all this type of
Yeah.
stuff. But like if we were to compare like ROI to appreciation value, like maybe East Coast is more like you get a higher return, blah blah blah. But here the appreciation that you're going to receive on your builds in the next 10 years in Sacramento is probably, I mean, what's your estimate?
Okay, so
Obviously, you're not building this.
despite the crazy politics
Yeah.
and not friendly business environment,
Mm-hmm.
the reality is liberal leaning states that have a bunch of red tape are going to their home prices historically, and I believe they will continue to outgrow the rest of the country, simply because supply and demand. If it's not easy to build
Mm-hmm.
and it's a high cost barrier to entry,
Mm-hmm.
then only the big guys can play.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a ton of time to get something approved, and during that time there's increased growth. And that's not, the red tape is not something that you can undo very quickly in California and New
Right.
York, in Illinois and stuff like that. So as far as appreciation goes.
So is the red barrier or the red tape almost like a way for the big boys to control the little guys out to somewhere else?
I don't know if it's
Like to keep
a
them out
way
of the
for the
playground or
big
whatever?
boys, but it is definitely an attractive point for the big boys. Um, Large private equity companies, large um, investors like markets that are a high cost to enter, high
Mm,
barrier to entry. Um, they like stuff where it takes tons of money to get a project going
mm-hmm.
because there's going to be a lot less competition.
Okay. I
Okay.
can see that. So like
It's like that, by the way, in the pharmaceutical industry, but we won't go there.
actually with drugs or
Well,
with
like
building?
the FDA, right?
Oh, whatever it takes longer to approve and all
Like
that.
it takes like $2 million to get all these studies and get approved for like something as simple as like a cream,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like a skin cream. If you were to have an awesome formula for something, like you probably could never get licensed because you don't have the money,
To
and
get
so
it
your
approved.
product would never make it. But someone who has an inferior product with more money can make it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I see where you're going there. Well, mighty rhino. Um that's a lot of things to unpack for me
Yeah.
personally from what we've just talked about tonight. Like we've touched a lot of subjects. Um would love to have you back. Would love to follow your build and kind of visit your site at groundbreaking.
Let's do it.
That's pretty exciting for me.
Have to invite you out.
Yeah, so that's like when I see wood, and this is just like my inexperience with residential or with wood framing,
Uh-huh.
but it's like it makes me feel weird. Like when I see a lot of wood framing, it just it makes me uncomfortable, and I don't know what's going on.
It's like, yeah, second class citizens, peasants.
Exactly. Yes, there is a little bit of that. I'm like, do these guys even know what they're doing?
That's funny.
But it's just because I haven't been exposed to that type of stuff.
Well, you know, California recently, not recently, last year approved. Um, they are
Over five
adopting,
struck
yeah, they're
levels.
adopting new wood frame building standards that will allow them to go. I want to say up to like 9 stories.
I did hear
Yeah.
that, which made me
So before you know it, you're going to be,
I agree with you. When I heard that come out, I think that happened like last year or two
yeah,
years ago. Um, it made me think about my market share and like how much more work is gonna go probably away from what we do, and we'll have to focus on the bigger stuff or find a way to sell an owner
sustainable, bro.
find but metal's sustainable too. It could be recycled, but what is
Wood regrows.
yeah
So I guess
lean
that's,
and lead or lead. That's lead stuff.
mm,
Certification. Are you
yep.
getting a certification on your build?
Have to.
You do?
Yeah.
What silver, gold, platinum? What are you going
It
for?
is no, it actually it was already, it's predetermined during planning. Yeah. Like when you submit for your plans,
Yeah.
your plans are approved based on what you got, what certification is. Because
No
they're, yeah,
way.
because
I
it's got
thought
to
that was
meet,
like a choice for the builder.
yeah, it's a choice, but that's done ahead of time. Like it's not something that where you just finish building
Yeah.
and it's not like you know where you're like, okay,
Oh,
let's see how high we can score type thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you
Right,
work with your
because
architect
your
to achieve
specs,
that.
all your
Correct.
materials, your VOCs,
Yeah.
everything needs to add up to a certain amount.
Windows and yeah, yeah.
But Mike, I guess my question is, did you want to be LEED certified on your build, or is that like something that the city pushed you towards?
I That's a good question and I don't even know. I think that the architect I think that there are like incentives
Mm-hmm.
for scoring. And so I know that we will be LEED certified. I don't know which level.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
But that's yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That I hate it personally. Doing submittals and reading, going through specs for leads and getting them approved by architects and stuff
Mhm.
is a pain.
Yeah.
And I still don't know the actual benefit for the consumer or for the people leasing the building besides like a stamp on the architect.
It's like organic, bro.
It's not FDA approved. It's weird. It's that's I guess that is another podcast too. But this lead stuff, personally, I feel like it's like a scam. No, maybe not a scam, but it's a way to prevent people from all over the United States to bring in their materials and supplies to California.
Yeah.
It makes you use people within a 50-mile radius, 100-mile radius,
Mhm.
which is I guess is a good thing because
Yeah, keeping things in,
things in house, but it kind of that's part of the reason why maybe prices are going up because there's less competition. People can't really come in from outside. But that's a whole like economic spectrum right there. Anyways, we're gonna end with the beginning. Welcome to the What Wine How Can I podcast. Thank you for coming on. If you don't know this man already, you're missing out. This is our second podcast with Oleg, and super interesting character, super interesting guy, interesting story. Like, subscribe, share. Peace.